is Bear Siragusa, and you are listening to the Hunting Hound podcast presented by W Hunting Supply. All right. So when does the training season start for you?
July 1st. July 1st.
Okay.
Yep. And then that runs the months of July and August. And then our kill season starts. Well, it's either the first Wednesday after Labor Day or the second Wednesday after Labor Day. We always flip-flop with the bait sitters on who goes first. And this year it's our turn to go first. So I think that means it starts on the 5th this year. So we only have a few days off in between.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. Is that for everything or just bear?
That's just bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you do a little bit of you do some cat hunting as well.
Yeah, I bobcat hunt quite a bit in the winter.
Yeah.
That season, so we actually have two seasons. Our first season, they call it, ends on Christmas Day. And then our second season would start December 26th and run through the last day of January.
Okay. Yep.
The first season can be a little touchy because I think it technically starts like the beginning of November.
Mm-hmm.
But because of our, deer hunting is such a big thing around here.
Right.
You can't even really consider it starting, as with the hounds. Our trapping and hunting is lumped in together. So if you draw a bobcat tag, you can trap it or you can get it with hounds or calling it or whatever. So, if you're going to trap, you can start the beginning of November, but to pursue them with hounds, it's really out of the question until first week in December. Just with all the deer hunters in the woods, I guess It's probably technically not illegal. It's just not very smart in my opinion.
Right.
No.
That makes sense. How do you pursue cats? Like, are you driving for tracks or are you free casting? What are you doing there?
No, yeah, I mostly go out in the snow, drive around roads checking for tracks, or if we get a good amount of snow, I like to hunt off my snowmobile and allows you to get in. We've got some pretty big chunks of land up here, so I think a lot of times those bigger cats don't hardly move,
Right.
And if you can get into some of those big blocks, and I'll even walk in and check a creek crossing or something, and I've cut a lot of tracks doing that. I just don't think they don't move a lot, people always ask me how much they travel. I'm like, well, I think they can be in one spot for a week.
Sure.
And they might pick up and go 15 miles one day just because they feel like it, and,
right.
They might be there for a week and come back. You just never know.
Right.
I have gotten on some of those traveling toms, cold trailing them, and it seems like they go forever. But then there's other times I think where they just find a swamp with some rabbits somewhere and don't really have to leave. Got everything they need.
Yeah, that's been my experience anyway with the lynx. Is that if they get into a good source of food, they'll hunker down for a month. They won't move at all.
Yeah. Yep.
So we had unfortunately had a family group of lynx hunker down right here around the house. I saw them a couple times and got on them with the dogs a couple times, but we're not allowed to harvest family groups for the first month of the lynx season. So after the month had gone by, we got one of the kittens. It was mostly grown at that point, but there's still a female and some half-grown or mostly grown kittens floating around, and they completely decimated our roe deer population. Which is
they're just wiping them out.
Just wiping them out. So in the beginning of the season, like every time we trailed them, I'd find a roe deer kill. And towards the end of the season, I stopped finding roe deer kills and started finding red stag, which is like the European elk.
Okay.
I started finding those kills, which is a pretty good indication that they're not catching roe deer anymore, because if they can choose, they'll go for roe deer.
How big is a lynx by you? Man, that seems like an awful big prey for not a very big cat.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's like the idea that they're going to be able to take down, several 100-pound animal is kind of unbelievable. But I mean, they're not much bigger than, 35, 40 pounds most of the time. I mean, occasionally they'll get kind of an outlier that's a little bigger, up in like the 50, 60 pound range. But that's pretty unusual.
So they're pretty unusual, pretty comparable to our bobcats and the lynx. We don't have lynx here, but
no, the lynx up in like the Canadian lynx, they're pretty comparable. Yeah,
sure,
for sure. So, but how like you? I've only ever been able to do one dog related sport at a time. I did the sheep dogs, and then I did the hound in the sled dogs, and then now I've gotten into the hounds. You have a lot. I mean, your life is as doggy as any life I've seen. I mean, you do a lot of different types of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much 365 days a year for me. And I'm sure you're getting to the bird dog side of things too. So I also have pointing dogs. Right now I have 2 German short hairs, and about 11 years ago, I got a bird dog. She was a Weimaraner. Mm-hmm. Me and my wife had just gotten married. We wanted a house dog. I've had the hounds, but we wanted more of a family dog. And I'm like, well, if we're going to get a dog, let's get something I can take hunting every once in a while too,
Sure.
So, and we both liked Weimaraners. So I just, basically went on Facebook or whatever it was and happened to find a Weimaraner breeder that was close and signed up for one and ended up getting her. And like I said, we got her right after my wife and I got married. And, my intentions with getting that dog was just as I said, I have a house dog that I could take for a walk in the woods. I wasn't a big bird hunter at that time. I'd gone a little bit. My father-in-law and brother-in-law had bird dogs, but I didn't really know much about it. And I got her, and thankfully I've got some friends that are pretty big into bird dogs, and they kind of hooked me up with a professional trainer. And I hung out with him a little bit and kind of saw what the difference between a professionally trained bird dog, and some of the other bird dogs I've seen, where the handlers are just yelling at the dog the whole time, the dog's trying to run away, the dog's trying to take out birds. And, then I hung out with this professional trainer and saw that, I mean, he didn't say a word to his dogs. They just handled every situation, without a command. And I'm like, man, that's what I want right there.
Right.
So it kind of put me down that rabbit hole of training that first bird dog. She went from being a dog that I just wanted to take hunting every once in a while to me being, neck deep in the training. And I went a couple places with her, South Dakota. I made a trip out to Montana once and just kind of fell in love with it. And but there was things about her I didn't like. She had a really soft personality, which doesn't really mesh with me that much. I mean, can kind of be a little bit too emotional at times, and if I would get on her a little too hard or something, she'd be like, we're done. Well, if you're going to yell at me, I'm just not going to do anything.
Right. Yeah. I've been there.
And that was a little tough for me to deal with. And then I became friends with a guy in Kansas that's a German short hair breeder. And I fell in love with his dogs. I've been around a couple short hairs in the past, and I didn't love them, to be honest with you, because, most of them didn't really have an off switch. It's like, they'd hunt like crazy, but in the house they were tearing the shit out of everything too,
Right.
but his dogs were just, he'd send me pictures, or I'd see pictures of him sleeping on the couch, and I spent some time with him. And I'm like, man, this is what I want. So I ended up talking to him about getting a short hair from him, and her name's Jade. She'll be 5 here in September, and that breeder was pretty big into the AKC hunt tests and field trials, and pretty big into NAVHDA as well. And I became really good friends with him, and his requirement to get the full registration was to, you had to run him into a certain stage in NAVHDA. And I'm like, oh well, I'll do that. I mean, it's good training anyways. Well, knowing my personality, I can't do anything half-assed. Like, I'm either going to go all in, or I'm not going to do it at all. So with her, I've run her in NAVHDA. She's a versatile champion now, which is as far as you can go. AKC, she's a master hunter advanced, and I actually started running her in some field trials and stuff here this last spring, which gave me the bug. We haven't won any, but she's placed second, third, fourth numerous times, and there was a couple times where I made handler errors where she would have won. So it kind of put that in motion now too, where that's heading towards her field champion title is something I'd like to do, because there's not a lot of dogs out there that are field champions as well as versatile champions, just because the training and style of dog, it's hard to get a dog that succeeds at both of those.
Sure.
So yeah, it's turned into dogs have turned into a 365 day a year thing for me. I run bears July, August, and then all the way up into beginning of October. And then our kill season ends, I think, on a Tuesday this year, which would be like October 3rd. And I'm heading to Montana October 5th for a week-long bird hunting trip. So I'll be bird hunting super hard until we get good snow where I can cat hunt. And then when that ends at the end of January, I February, March, I start training my bird dogs. And then in the spring is big field trial and hunt test seasons. And I do that right up till July 1st. So yeah, it's a year-round gig for me. And
that's awesome.
I love it.
Awesome. Do you train other dogs? Is that your profession at this point?
No, it's not my profession. Yes and no. I've gotten quite a few buddies that have got bird dogs, so I'll bring them in and help them out. It's definitely not a profession for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've considered it a couple times, but man, if you want to make any money training bird dogs, you kind of either got to be all in or all out,
Right.
And the saying, if you love something, and then you turn it into a job, it becomes just that. It becomes work. So I'm not sure that's something, thankfully, I have a real job that does fairly well. So I don't need to do that. Part of me wants to, but another part of me is a little hesitant to jump in that deep as well.
Sure. So, that makes sense. I did that with the sled dogs, where I turned a passion into a job, started doing some guiding and things like that. And, enjoyed it in the beginning, but it got old after a while. It started to feel like work and kind of took some of the joy away from it.
For sure.
But you were in hounds first before you got into the bird dogs.
Yeah, I think I'm 38 now, and I was born into it. My family's had hounds and been breeding blue tick hounds for probably pushing 50 years now.
Wow.
So it's something that I've always done, and it's just part of me. I can't see myself. People have asked me now if I could either do the bird dogs or the hounds, which would I take? And oh man, it would kill me to have to choose. They're so different, but yet so much the same. And I really love the relationship I have with both of them, and kind of how they complement each other, and have really helped me, help me in both aspects. Just what I learned from one, using that towards the other. So,
Sure.
but yeah, the hounds are kind of what got me started in the dogs, and
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, that's
probably my
cool.
first love.
Are you still running the family line of blue ticks?
Yeah, yep. We still have most of our stuff now goes back to everything they started with.
That's so cool. Well,
Man, when it comes to the history of our dogs, it's one of them things that it's not that I don't care, but I just don't have a good memory for it. And my
hmm.
cousin, who is pretty much like my brother, I mean, you start talking to him about the history. I mean, he can rattle off dog after dog after dog from 30 plus years ago,
Right.
and how they all tie together. And it doesn't quite stick with me like that. But,
Gotcha.
they started out with Smoky River bred dogs,
Mm-hmm.
um, and had a lot of success with them for a few years, and kind of, my cousin says they kind of hit a plateau where things weren't really getting better or whatever. So they looked for some outside blood to cross in, and they ended up crossing Sebastian, bred blue ticks out of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Um,
Okay.
and so now we pretty much call them 50-50 Smoky River and Sebastian bred dogs. Um,
Okay.
we've brought in a little bit of outside blood here and there. Well, and obviously we have such a big network now. If we're getting a little too tight or whatever, there'll be a Smoky River dog over in Michigan or something we might breed to here and there, just to freshen things up. And my cousins brought in a couple Ray bred blue ticks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we've got some pups that would be now half Ray, half our breeding.
Okay.
They're only 5 months old, but man, a couple of those dogs are hell on wheels already at 5 months old. So,
Cool.
um,
Cool.
yeah,
Oh,
so that's
that's
pretty much
exciting.
what we're hunting.
Is it still kind of a family deal where you're all kind of working together with breedings and stuff like that, or are you kind of doing your own thing and your cousin, for example, is doing his own thing, or how does that work?
No, it's pretty much a family deal. Like I said, me and my cousin are really close. I only keep 4 dogs. Well, right now I have 4 dogs of my own.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a whole yard full. I mean, he's got, I don't know, 15 to 20 or something right now.
Mm.
Um, he So yeah, I mean, it's a family deal still. And when it comes to bear hunting, we've got a pretty large group. A lot of local guys that hunt with us and stuff. I mean, it's rare that you go out hunting and you're by yourself. I mean, there's
Sure.
always one, two, three, sometimes 5, 6 other guys out too. So
Sure.
it's a pretty big network that we have built
Okay.
up. I mean, you do it for 50 years and in the same spot, and it kind of grows.
Sure. Sure. Have you ever had any other hounds than the blue ticks, or have you just like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of a deal?
Yeah, I mean, my cousin's got, we've got we had couple plots that we've tried here and there, and we've crossed our dogs, like to a plot before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of if it's broke, don't fix it situation.
Mm.
And people ask me, because I've got tons of friends that run all sorts of, you name it. Obviously plots are big around here. I've got some really good friends that I hunt with quite often that got more of the running dog stuff, and they've asked me to take pups before, and
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily, it's not that I don't think their dogs are good. It's just I've got a lot of sentimental value in our dogs as well,
Yeah.
and sure, maybe that can cloud your vision a little bit, but I think it's cool and means a lot to me, that I'm hunting a dog that I also hunted his mom and dad, its grandpa and grandma, it's aunts and uncles. And I mean, I think it's just kind of cool and a little bit unique, in our world as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. I'm not anywhere near that point in the hounds, but I was there with the Huskies where I knew that dog's father, mother, grandfather, grandmother on both sides, sometimes great grandfather and great grandmother. And there's something to be said for having that kind of knowledge of like just kind of knowing what, I don't know. When they do something weird, most of the time they had some relative that did the same thing.
Yep.
And there's something to be said for that. It was pretty rare that I brought in new blood towards the end there. And as you say, it could be a little bit, you kind of back yourself into a corner and a little bit blind to what's going on around you. But at the same time, if you're finding something that works really well for you, it seems like it's never not going to be a high performance animal. You may have people that still beat you, in trials or races or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually not by much. If you've got something that's really clicking for you, it seems like it's worth holding on to.
Well, and I'm not afraid to go anywhere or hunt with anybody, so I went out west in Montana and hunted out there for 10 years until they changed the regulations, hunt mountain lions and stuff. And, I've got, like I said, quite a few friends around the state, especially in the winter. I go up and hunt in the northern part of the state some, and then I got a friend down south a few hours that I go hunt with some, just kind of based on snow conditions, and they all have different dogs. And, like I said before, it's not like I don't recognize that they have good dogs as well, but I also haven't necessarily seen something that is like, man, we gotta quit doing what we're doing.
Right.
Right. I think in our line of dogs, you can get about anything. And I think the cold trailing ability that we're capable of producing in our line of dogs kind of is what I'd say sets us apart. If you're going to run just hot tracks and little bears all the time, I've got friends that their dogs are going to leave my dogs in the dust most times. But what I like to have in dogs is the confidence when I pull up to a bait or put them on a bobcat track, they're going to grind that track and most times get it jumped, and or they're just not going to give up. And
me too.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that a lot with other dogs. Not to say there's none out there. But I just think, what our line throws. I've been spoiled right now. My oldest dog's 9, and he's been a dog that if you put him out at a bait, it doesn't matter how old it is, doesn't matter the conditions. He's probably going to jump it. And if he can't jump it, it's almost impossible to jump. And
right.
I like having that confidence. Yeah. I like having that confidence. And
I do too. Yeah. I do too. And it's been something that it's hard to find. It's hard to find over here. It's there's plenty of good dogs. I'm not going to criticize anybody's dogs. It's just I have a based. It's sort of hard to explain, but if I could explain it, it's based on a vibe. With the Alaskan Huskies, I wanted dogs that could function when the shit hit the fan. I didn't want the fastest dogs out there. I wanted dogs that were going to be the highest functioning when everything was going wrong.
Yep.
And that's how I still am kind of with the hounds, where I don't need the fastest dog out there. I don't need the first dog to the tree. I don't need, that's okay. I want a dog that if I put it down on a dinosaur track, it's going to bump that dinosaur, sooner or later. Yeah. And it's hard to find here. And I've found it in some of the plot lines that they use to run bear over here. But I only know of a single blue tick over here right now. And that dog I found kind of coincidentally I was at this big hunting gathering. It was a fox hunting thing. And we, at the end of it, they had this huge banquet. And so there were 500 dogs out there, in the parking lot. And, all these Nordic hounds barking. And then, over all of these hounds, hundreds of dogs, way in the back of the parking lot, I could hear this big ball mouth, boo, 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 boo. So I just, me being me, I just like couldn't care less about the banquet. I walked through this entire, tracked down this dog. And the guy was luckily at the truck, and I was like, "Hey, what is that? What you got? What do you got in there?" And he opened the door, and it was a blue tick, which is the first one I've actually seen over here, which is strange to me because they're, I know you've got a great line. I know Jared Moss is really happy with his guys. Jason Doobie had blue ticks for the longest time. It's like it seems like you'd be hard pressed to find a type of dog or a breed of dog that's functioning at a higher level. There's dogs, breeds that are functioning at this, at a high level, but you'd be hard pressed to find, if you took the best blue tick out there and the best plot out there and the best treeing walker out there, I don't think there'd be much of a difference. The difference in how they would be, but in terms of just overall quality, I don't think you would have a dog that would come out, on top because it was, plot or blue tick or anything like that. And it's odd to me that there's not more of them over here. There's quite a few, plots are getting a little bit more popular over here. And the treeing walkers are getting a little bit more popular over here. But the blue ticks have still not caught on, which I think is odd.
Is it just a matter of because there isn't any, they're hard to get?
Yeah, I think so. In 1993, there was a Swedish guy that was an avid bear hunter and wanted something better than was available in Scandinavia at the time. So he started importing plots from Steve Moore up in British Columbia, the Ursus plots. Mm-hmm. And those have been the sort of standard since then.
Sure, because that's what's there.
Right. It's what's there. And to be fair, they've functioned very, very well here.
Yep.
They started bringing over some treeing walkers, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. A little bit more, maybe. Some of the Sluka stuff is over here, and but they're still not real popular. There's definitely dogs out there. I've hunted over a couple of them that are really, really good. Mm-hmm. But their feet are not super in the snow. I don't know whether that's a sort of breed issue or whether it's just some of the mixes they've done over here, because it's not all that Sluka stuff. It's a bunch. There's a bunch of different stuff over here, but my experience has been anyway that's been the limiting factor is the quality of the feet.
Sure.
But I've yet to hunt over a blue tick. But I'm hearing so many good things that it's getting tempting.
I'll put one in a box and send it to you.
Yeah, so put one in the mail. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Were your have your family always been hunting both bears and cats, or was it mostly bears?
No.
Back in the day?
So basically, it was my two uncles that brought home the first blue ticks, and then it was primarily bears. 20 up until about 20 years ago, maybe a little less, it was hard to find bobcats around here. So bobcat hunting wasn't real big. I mean, anytime you can drive all day and not find a track, it's hard to get too big into it. My
Sure.
cousin has pretty much always run coyotes in the winter. And then, about the time where I, 10, 15 years ago when I was done with school and my business was fairly successful and I had some more time, I really fell in love with the bobcat hunting. So
Mm.
I was kind of we always hunted bobcats a little bit, but we never really had dedicated bobcat dogs.
Okay.
If somebody we knew had a tag or whatever, you'd go out and try to find a track and try to get them one. But like I said, the population was just not there. So it was hard to have really
Mm.
good bobcat dogs. I mean, I'm sure, if you're only going to put your dogs on 2-3 bobcats a year, well,
It's
it's pretty tough to have really good dogs. And the coyote population has always been good. And to be honest with you, a lot of people around here like running coyotes more. It's a little more interactive. They cross
mm.
roads. You can run more dogs.
Mm.
Sometimes bobcat hunting, the bobcat's headed into a big chunk, and if you get more than 2-3 dogs on it, it can kind of sometimes screw things up, especially if those dogs aren't used to hunting together. And a bobcat will get into a swamp somewhere and not leave. So the people sitting on the road are left out there twiddling their thumbs all the time. So I'm kind of the one that fell in love with the bobcat hunting and really started to bobcat hunt hard and
Gotcha.
really try to develop good bobcat, quote bobcat dogs, that were just bobcat minded. And um,
Hmm.
first few years was kind of rough, to be honest with you. But now, I've been through a few dogs, and I've had a couple generations of dogs that have gone through that, and have started them out on it right away and stuck to it. And last year was probably my best season ever. And
Okay.
I think right now I probably have better bobcat dogs than we've ever had.
Okay. Cool.
But
What is it
they've been
about
on
the
a lot.
bobcats that you like versus the bear, for example?
The challenge of it, I think bobcat hunting can be very tough. Like in my opinion, the toughest trailing and trying to catch that there is. But also once you
Mm-hmm.
get over a foot of snow, it can be super easy and kind of lame as well, because they just got a hard time going in that deep snow. So I really like hunting them when we just have like an inch
Okay.
to a few inches of snow. By us, you don't tree very many. A lot of times they get into these really thick swamps and just spin circles. Without having a really good track dog that's going to keep that cat moving all the time and not getting
Mm.
screwed up on its loops, they can make you look pretty stupid in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that. A lot of times I'll turn my dogs loose and I'll just start walking behind them, because bobcats will do things that it doesn't matter how good of a trail dog you have, a dog's just not going to figure out. It could jump up on a
Right.
log and walk a bare log for 20, 30 yards and jump off onto something on the other end. Well,
Yeah.
the trail dog's not going to figure that out. I've had a bobcat walk one direction for a mile, stop, turn around, walk step for step in its track, back a half a mile and get off. Well,
Wow.
unless your dog happens to get lucky and find that
Right.
first turn, it ain't gonna, it's going to be a half mile
Right.
in the wrong direction. So a lot of times I'll walk with my dogs just in case something like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to be honest with you, early on, it was out of necessity, because, like as I said, my dogs just weren't that great, and I had to help them out a lot.
Sure.
They'd get into a deer yard, and I'd just have to help them out. So I like that part of it. I like being there with them. I love sitting down on a log and hearing my dog circling a cat in a swamp, 100 yards away.
Sure.
A lot of times it's just me and my cousin or something. Sometimes bear hunting can get a little bit hectic with a lot of people, a lot of dogs. It's a little more stressful. just not quite as relaxing to me.
Yep.
So, if I had to pick just one, bear hunting or bobcat hunting, now I would definitely pick bobcat hunting. I mean, there are still things about bear hunting that I really enjoy, and I would hate not to do it, but that's kind of what I like about it.
Gotcha.
I like being in the woods and walking and being with my dogs. So
yeah, I can completely relate to that. That's my attitude as well. There's something about being out there, just me and the hounds. We've only got the one hound deal here. It's not it's in certain areas you can drop more than one, as in two. But here where I hunt, it's actually a law that you can't run more than a single hound at a time. And there's just something about, being out there together with the hound, walking behind him, it keeps me moving, which is, probably good. And, in addition, it's just, a little bit more of a feeling of accomplishment. There's certainly a feeling of accomplishment, raising a hound that's able to get the job done on its own, but there's also, there's something to be said for getting in there and, mixing it up together with the hounds.
Well, you learn so much about that animal when you're following it. I mean, there's been times where my dogs have screwed up or made a loss or whatever, and you think that cat's gone, and I sit there and thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I bet I know where that little bastard went. And I'll go hike a loop around, and sure enough, cut its track, leaving where it screwed everything up.
Sure.
And call the dogs over and put them on it, and it's back on. So there's a lot of mind games that can happen. Absolutely. With running cats too. I will say right now I've got it. Well, I think she's just about 4. Her name's Izzy, and it's awesome because she's so good at catching cats. But I'm also a little bit afraid that she might take some of the fun out of it for me. And I know this might sound a little bit arrogant for me to say, but last year I only put on one bobcat that she didn't catch. Oh, wow. And that was the very first bobcat of the year, and it went into a standing cornfield. Wow. And I think she's just kind of got the game figured out, you know, because they're early season when we didn't have much snow. I had a couple hunters with me, we get a cat jumped and like, oh yeah, this is fun. And we're in the swamp, cat would run by us, and then here come the dog, the dogs would run by and the cat would go make a loop, come back again. Sure. At one time I'm like, we've only had this thing jump for 5 minutes, and that cat ran by and that dog was right on his tail. Like,
that's awesome.
I'm like, this is over already. It's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, but it's also kind of fun to sit there and, and have a prolonged race that so I she's a fun dog to hunt with, but, and I got 2 pups out of her too they'll be cool. 2 in October. And I think she kind of really accelerated that learning curve for them this winter, just because she was, we were so successful and she was catching them so quick. And yeah, they might not be right there at the catch, but they were, they knew what was going on, and they got there shortly. And, they really progressed leaps and bounds from the beginning of the year to the end of the winter. And I think she probably had a lot to do with that.
That's really cool. Wow. That's exciting. How do you, like, when you start pups, are you starting them on cat, or are you starting them on bear? Or, I've talked to some people who start their big game hounds on rabbits. Like, how do you go about that?
So I'll pretty much, whenever they're of age, whatever season it is, they're going to go. I would say in a perfect world, I would rather my pups be, 9 months old when cat season starts. Just because I think giving them a season of bears can make it a little tougher to start them out on cats. There's so much more scent with bears. They can run head up a lot more. And also I've seen dogs that got a hard just a hard time putting their nose in tracks after they've run bears. Now, I always figure I hunt enough, I'm going to work them through it. And just like I did with these 2 younger dogs I got now, they were born in the fall. So last bear season, they were 8-9 months old when bear season started, and I'm not going to leave them at home for 6 months, just waiting for cat season, because it's also good to give them that track experience.
Sure.
You might have some unintended consequences when it starts, but again, I kind of always figure I'm going to hunt enough to work them through that.
Right.
Just keep putting them down. Thankfully, we can hunt more than one dog here, because I could see where that would make training puppies a little difficult. For sure.
It makes it tough. Yeah. There's something, it was the nice thing with the Huskies, is that I always had good dogs after that first generation of dogs that I kind of taught myself. Every generation after that built off of the foundation that I started with that first dog, and, just far exceeded what I was able to make happen with that first dog. But, you could sort of see the continuity there, which kind of appealed to me. And, but with the hounds, it's like, I sometimes feel like I'm starting from scratch every time. And it's that's a little discouraging. I'm not going to lie, especially when you end up with some accidents and things that, set you back, and, suddenly you're set back, a year or two.
Yeah.
And, have a couple mediocre seasons where you're just kind of trying to get the young dog or dogs bought in and functioning. And that's been really frustrating for me, in a situation where, with the sled dogs, I always had, my bench was really strong. I always went into it with the attitude that, a team is only as good as its bench. And, my from the peewees up until the minor leagues, I had some very good candidates the entire way. And, with the hounds, I've not had that. Yeah. I've had some very good candidates, but things have happened, injuries, bad experiences, whatever, where, or even, my own screw ups, that original hound that I got in the very beginning, he was so good in the beginning that I think I treated him a little bit too much like an adult. And also but at the same time, I was so careful with him that I built up this sort of ego monster by protecting him from some of the realities, I think, of, what he was actually going to meet out there. And when the reality kind of, met him in the face and he bumped into a bear while he was out running fox, that was the end of it for him. Like he couldn't handle it. I'd convinced him from he was a puppy until he was 2 years old that, he was indestructible, and suddenly he met something that just completely shook his ability, completely shook him. And he's been completely useless since.
Yeah.
And that set me back a solid year. And then I had, this plot that was doing really, really well, but got really kind of iffy with kids. And I had small kids at the time, and it just didn't, and, since then it's just been kind of, I've got a dog that when she's on, she's good, but she's inconsistent. If I'm honest, she's inconsistent. On her good days, she's as good as anything. And on her bad days, she's she's a liability, to be like, and it's, so it's something that I'm still chafing under a little bit, that sort of, single hound thing over here. I wish that wasn't the case.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be difficult. I mean, but, on the other hand, I think when you're running a pack or whatever, and we've seen this time and time again. I mean, you can think you've got a hell of a good pack of dogs, and you lose one of them dogs, and it can go to hell in a handbasket, because, you don't realize sometimes how much a really good dog, it's almost like having a good quarterback on a football team. a good quarterback can mask a lot of your issues and kind of hold everything together. And it can be a lot the same with hounds. And that's one thing
Totally agree.
I've got this 9-year-old now, Remy. I mean, he's not fast, but he is just one of them dogs that always holds everything together. And I've kind of had to be careful a little bit, not to depend on him too much,
right?
To kind of let the dogs, let my other dogs figure it out a little bit on their own, but yet he can really help bolster their confidence as well.
Right.
I had a couple dogs here. A week ago, we were running a little bear and they got into a cornfield and it just blew up, which cornfields can be tricky sometimes, especially with inexperienced dogs. And I had a couple dogs that trailed out on something. And I think what happened is I think they bumped into a bigger, probably a pretty mean bear, and didn't really like what they found. And my one younger dog, I mean, he got the hell out of there in a hurry. And the other one was there, but she wasn't loving it. I walked in and a couple other dogs had made it there. And I walked in and they walked up to me like they had seen a ghost.
Okay.
And, in that situation, like I kind of wish my old dog Remy would have been there, or another dog that we have that isn't going to get bluffed like that, because I think he could have changed that whole dynamic completely.
Sure.
And probably gave those other dogs a little bit more confidence. So, it's really a catch-22. Thankfully, well, I shouldn't say thankfully, but my old dog, he's got DCM. He's got an enlarged heart.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, he does really well in small spurts, and when it gets hot and humid, it's really hard on him. So like the last few days here has been miserable. It's been super hot and humid, and I haven't gone, but I'm going to go tomorrow, and it's the humidity and heat starting to break. And I think I'm just going to leave him at home. And kind of, once again, take him out of the equation. I've seen a lot of good progress out of these two younger dogs and my other dog Izzy, and, just see if they can go do it on their own.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise that he's got that issue. It's a bummer to watch a good dog go downhill. But also it might keep me from handicapping those other dogs quite as much,
Yeah. No, I understand that. I had a sled dog with dilated cardiomyopathy, and it was a bummer.
Yeah,
it was a bummer.
Some days it's like, man, he's about back to the way he was, and then other days it's and I think it's been three. I think this will be the third bear season. So 2 years ago is when he got diagnosed with it. And if you would have told me now that he'd still be alive, I'd be doing somersaults. I'd be so happy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's still doing really good trailing, getting really tough tracks jumped. But once the track gets good and it gets any pace to it, I mean, he just falls on his face. He can't keep up. And so I guess that's one way to look at it. I'm just glad I have him and can use him at times.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing for sure, but it also is a bummer. He's, some days it's just like, you can tell he's breathing so hard that it's like, I should have just left him at home today. Yeah. But he's a hunting dog, man. I mean, if you could ask him, would you rather stay at home today or go bear hunting? He's going to be like, screw it, I'm going bear hunting.
Right. Absolutely.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Right. If I die, I die. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's, that kind of dog is just, it's worth so much. I wrote an article about it a while back, but it's, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in the dog mushing world was from a guy that said, "Do you have a good lead dog?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got one. he said, how many do you have? And I said, I have one. And he said, okay, don't run that lead dog and lead again unless you need him. Because, you know, the thing was that if I depended on that one dog, you know, if it was sort of the linchpin for my whole operation, if that dog went out, got sick, got injured, whatever, I was screwed.
Yep.
Like severely screwed.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was something to be, and it was the best bit of information or, you know, advice I ever got was to, you know, get the dog to its full potential and then don't use it that way. Keep it in the back, keep it protected, you know, put it up there every once in a while to, you know, keep it fresh. But, you know, otherwise work on building up other lead dogs. Don't let the team lean on that one dog.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. You know, it's, you know, it's like having that sort of ace up your sleeve where, you know, that when the, you know, shit hits the fan, you've got an extra gear in there somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. We've had a couple bear seasons where we'll get on a rough bear kill season, you know, right at the beginning and get our best 2 or 3 dogs beat up a little bit. And
yeah,
it's like you think you got a pretty good pack of dogs and pretty soon you're turning out your, you know, on tough tracks, you're turning out your 4th, 5th, 6th best dog and running deer and treeing coons and running fisher. You know, it's like, what the hell? You know, you just, them dogs that hold it all together. I mean, they can mask a lot of issues that you have, but they can also make everybody look like rock stars too.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you can, it's remarkable how one good dog can make you delude yourself into thinking that, hey man, I've got this down. Like I am like the Conor McGregor of hound hunting right now. And then you realize, oh, dang, I'm the Ronda Rousey of hound hunting. I got hit once and I'm down, you know?
Yep, exactly.
So
I love that team aspect of it though. I mean, you know, and that's one thing that it just keeps me so drawn to the hounds. I played college football and college basketball, and you know, I was a big team sports player. And you know, now I kind of look at it as I'm their coach, and it's my position to, you know, it's my job to put my dogs into the best position to be successful and make your team better. And some people I think that they want dogs that are good at everything. And unfortunately that's just not the case, especially in the bear hunting world, you know, with us starting out on baits. You know, to have a dog that will consistently take a 12-hour-old cold track, but also is going to run at the front of the pack, you know, on a 15 to 20 mile chase, you know, that you're talking about a once in a lifetime dog there, pretty much. And is also, you know, if one of them bears stops, is going to have the guts to stick and bay it by itself or whatever. I mean, those dogs just don't come around very often. So, you know, it's kind of up to you, the coach, to figure out what dogs are the best at what, you know, and yeah, you want to always kind of keep improving their weak points, but you know, if you take a dog that's not capable of taking a 12-hour-old cold track and you keep throwing them on baits that are hit 12 hours ago, you're going to get pretty dang frustrated, you know. And same with like my Remy dog. If I expect him to run up front for 15 miles on an 80-pound bear, it ain't going to happen. I mean, I might as well just catch him at the first road crossing and, you know, let the other dogs do what they're good at. So it's, you know, it's some conversations I've had with some guys. You know, it's not like bear hunting here. It's not like you find a mountain lion track in the snow and, you know, you're going to have a fairly decent cold trail and the jump race isn't going to be very long in a tree. I mean, you know, you can have dogs that are good at all that. Here it's just with the bears, you're just asking the dogs to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's the challenge that I've found here anyway, is that, I used to look at it as a team, as you say. And, I had dogs that were good at specific things, and I knew what they were good for. I knew what they could do. I knew what they were capable of. So I was able to sort of set things up so that I had the best possible functioning team as a whole as it was possible for me to have with the group of dogs that I had. And, now it's just like me and one dog, where they kind of have to be good at everything. They've got to be kind of that one-man army, and those dogs are rare. And it's challenging when, we've got, it's challenging to find a dog that can do it all. And I have yet to see a dog that can actually, legitimately do it all. But I do prefer the dogs that can grind it out. If I can put them on a track that was from the night before and know that it may take them half the day, but they're eventually going to get that thing on its feet, I would much, much prefer that. I'm going to go home at the end of the day feeling like we've accomplished more than a dog. If I, den, say, 4 foxes for a dog that is only capable of running tracks that have been laid within the last hour and a half.
I would say I'm exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. We have trail cameras on all our baits now, and sometimes it's nice to have, to turn out on that bear was there just an hour ago or whatever. You're going to get dogs out. You're going to get dogs exercised. But man, when I see a bait that was hit like just at dark the night before, I know it's going to be tough. It gets me excited. Now, granted, there's times when I got them out there. They've been doing a lot of clear cutting and stuff in our woods, and sometimes those bears will walk across those clear cuts, and the scent conditions are just horrible when they do that. And there's been times where my dogs are out in this clear cut and haven't moved or haven't barked in 20 minutes, and it's like, oh my God, should I just call them out?
Right. But, you know where that bear went, but it's just like, God, come on, guys.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden you get a bark and they progress a little bit, and they get a bark and they progress a little bit, and then a lot of times that ends up turning into a jump bear. And I mean, just knowing that my dogs had the stick-to-itiveness to stick with that, they very easily could have took one of those trails out to the road and called it. But I want them to keep grinding. Yeah, I know sometimes they're not going to get that stuff jump, but I want them to think that they can jump every track. That I put them out on. Yep.
I totally agree with that. I could not be more in agreement about it. It's so many people want it becomes a numbers game.
Yeah.
A little bit in the same way as, there was just an article in one of the bigger hunting magazines where, rabbit hunters, they've stopped caring about how many rabbits their dogs actually are getting out and moving, but it's become for lack of a better phrase, a pissing contest about whose dogs are trailing the longest. And I mean, to me, it just kind of strikes me as a dog that's just not capable of getting it done. They're staying out there, they're barking, maybe a little bit too early, a little bit too loose.
Yep.
That's not a dog that is going to appeal to me personally. But at the same time, it's like I want a dog that's going to that has the ability to grind, because that's always been what I've liked to do myself. I'm not an instant gratification guy. If I get something instantly, I don't appreciate it as much as if I've had to grind it out and just kind of suffer for it. And, my dogs have always sort of reflected that. The teams I've had that have not been capable of that have not been teams that have done particularly well for me.
For sure.
And it's the same with the hounds. My main dog right now, it's sort of funny to think of her as my main dog because she's the dog that's, been quasi-functional for the longest. Is this, running walker that got just a terrible, terrible start to her life. And she's done better than I ever expected her to do, which is gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, like I said, like on her good days, she's good. But she's also, her good days aren't every day.
Yeah.
And it's, the best hound I've ever had was this plot, Dan. I look at him that way because it was that quality that he brought to the table. I was able to put him on things that were a day old and full of snow, and he was able to grind it out. He had that, he was right with me every step of just kind of grinding it out in just shit conditions.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. That's what I'm looking for in a dog. And I can appreciate that other people aren't looking for that same thing, but that's what I'm looking for.
Yep. Exactly.
So yeah, that's it. It's interesting. That's interesting. So you've got 4 hounds right now?
Correct. Yep.
And then the 2 German short hairs?
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. Are you training other people's dogs? Are you doing some guiding and stuff with your hounds as well? Or how is that?
I do a little bit of guiding. I don't market for it or anything. We have such a, because we've been doing it for so long, we have such a big network of people that, you took somebody in Wisconsin, it takes about 10 years. We'll just call it 10 years to draw a bear tag. And for our second bobcat season, it takes 10 years to draw a bobcat tag. So, we've kind of developed such a big network of people where, you take a landowner 1 year, help him get a tag or help him get an animal. And now all of a sudden his cousin 5 years down the road draws a tag and, I know somebody that'll take you, and it kind of snowballs like that. So we don't, I wouldn't really say we guide, but we do take some people and I even have random people on Facebook, that'll send me messages or whatever. And if I don't have very many bobcat tags or bear tags or whatever, I'll definitely consider taking them.
Sure.
It's definitely not we don't make any money doing it. Not to say we don't charge people, but again, that's one of those things. If you're going to be a guide, you better be a guide. And that means taking clients, on a regular basis and
whenever
trying to make some money doing it. Yeah, exactly. And we take some money just because it's expensive. And I figure I've got so much time and energy into these dogs. Me personally, I don't really care if I don't shoot stuff out to my dogs. I have more fun treeing a bear, leading them off, treeing a cat, leading them off, whatever. It takes a lot of the stress out of it for me. When you're committed to somebody and getting them an animal, it makes it a little bit more stressful. But on the other hand, to take somebody that lives 4 hours away, never gone with me before, I don't, I'm burning, sometimes checking for cat tracks, you're burning half a tank, $50-$100 a day in fuel just looking for stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I should take them for free either. So,
right.
That's kind of my mindset on it,
Yeah, that makes sense.
We do. And again, thankfully I've got a good job. I don't need to do it for money.
Right.
And I think also anytime you start doing stuff for money, it can kind of change your priorities a little bit as well.
Yeah, totally agree.
So not really something I'm interested in at this point in time.
That makes sense. Yep. No, that makes sense. I can relate to that. Yeah. What's the we've been talking for about an hour here, so I'll let you go here pretty soon, but I'm curious. I've been sort of looking at you through the camera here, but I see that big cat behind you. What's the story there?
Oh, that's a mountain lion I got in Montana Probably, oh man, I would say 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some good friends that live in Montana, and I went out there for, I think, about 11 or 12 years. Every year I went out there line hunting with them. And again, I went out there just to tree lions. One year we happened to tree a nice tom, and basically said, "Hey, you guys mind if I shoot this one? I'd like to
Yeah.
get one eventually." And they're like, "Hell yeah!"
Right.
So I actually I took one, but yeah, out of the 12 years I went out there, I don't know, I probably saw 60 lions in a tree, something like that,
That's
and
awesome.
only shot the one. But it was kind of a bucket list thing for me.
Sure.
I got a bobcat on the wall right there too, with a grouse in its mouth.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that a grouse in its mouth? That's awesome.
Yeah, and
Did you
actually
get
that
the
cat,
grouse for your bird dogs?
yeah, I'm sitting
That's
at my cabin
awesome.
right now, and I shot the grouse over my bird dogs. Would have been 2 falls ago. No, last fall. Yeah, just last fall, right behind my cabin here. And that bobcat actually, I had taken a guy last 2 winters ago. Said he wanted to go. He's a local guy. My dad worked with him a long time ago and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, give me a call. We'll go out.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up getting a nice cat. And after he shot the cat, he's like, you know what? He's like, I already got a 40-pounder, which is a monster, a 40-pounder on the
Wow.
wall, and he had like a 38-pounder on the wall. And he's like, he's like, I don't really want it. And I'm like, well, I'll take it.
Right.
So I'm like, I couldn't give a shit less if I was the one that pulled the trigger or not.
Right.
I mean, my dogs were the ones that treat it. So yeah, that cat, I didn't even pull the trigger on. I have shot one bobcat, and I got a rug. But yeah, all the hunting I do, I've drawn 3 bear tags in my life, never filled a bear tag, and I've only shot one bobcat. So
That's awesome.
and then I've shot the one lion. But man, I tell you what, after eating it, I'm like, man, I'd kind of like to get another one. Just
Yeah, I've
because
heard.
it
I've
was
heard
so
there's.
tasty.
I've heard they're so good, man. But it's funny though. I'll paint with a broad brush here, and I'm sure I'm going to get some kickback from this, but a lot of the guys that shoot a lot of animals, are not necessarily the best houndsmen. But the guys that are really prioritizing the dogs and the race and the quality of the, some of the best houndsmen I've talked to are like, I can't remember the last time I shot a bear.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but it is actually, the people, it seems like the people that put the most game up in the air it's not infrequently the people that shoot the least.
Yeah. I'm actually going out to British Columbia.
Oh, cool.
First week in December this year to go lynx hunting up there.
Cool.
I'm gonna meet Buddy up there. Again, it's a bucket list thing. Something I always wanted to do, and I think it would be really cool to have a lynx, bobcat, and a mountain lion all on the wall.
That would be cool.
And me and Buddy talked about it a couple times, and he goes up there a couple times a year or whatever, and he's like, yeah, go up there. I'm like, why don't you meet me up there? We hunt together. So I think he's going to meet me up there too, and I'm really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
The biggest bummer is it's like a 30-hour drive from here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a hike, and I'm going to take my own dogs because, again, I couldn't care less if I flew out there and shot one over another guy's dogs. I mean, it just wouldn't do it for me. Either I'm going to do it with my own dogs or it ain't going to happen.
Right.
So,
right. That makes sense.
And I'm completely fine with that.
That's cool.
So yeah,
wow,
I'm looking forward to it.
That's a crazy experience. Yeah. No, I would love to, I'd love to shoot lynx over my own dogs here. I've had 2 up a tree, but it's been outside of the hunting season.
Sure.
It's been while I've hunted fox, you know, because the fox is the
Yeah.
main thing that we can hunt here. Like if you've got hounds, you can hunt rabbits, which I'm not super into. You know, it's just not, doesn't do it for me.
Sure.
But if you want to hunt hounds and you want to hunt them every day for a long period of time, you know, the season starts the 21st of August and doesn't end until the 1st of April.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
you know, our everyday kind of daily bread kind of, you know, game is going to be fox. It's going to be red fox and badger.
And haven't you said like your bear season will sometimes end in 1 or 2 days?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, like
Yeah.
the bear season started here on the 21st as well over in Sweden. They don't even have a bear season in Norway. Over in Sweden, it started 2 days ago, and they have, you know, it's quotas. So, you know, every county has its own quota of bear. And there's a couple of counties that still have a bunch of bears. But there are counties that, you know, it was over within the first 5 hours.
Yeah, that wouldn't do it for me either. I mean, I'm not going to have dogs to just keep them tied up at home for 64 days a year. I
Right.
mean, it just,
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I could go, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll hunt bear and then they'll go one of the easily accessible, you know, game species, especially in Sweden, not so much in Norway, but in Sweden, is wild boar.
okay.
And, you know,
Yeah.
it requires some of the same qualities and things like that. So a lot of people who hunt bear will then, you know, spend the rest of the year hunting wild boar, you know, but it's like, I think it was Von Plott that said that hunting wild boar is the fastest way out of the dog business that he knows of. You know, and it's the truth.
Up.
They just get their asses kicked, you know, because you know the bears will just lie down and ignore the dogs. They'll occasionally turn around and fight, but it's you know the wild boar. It's a guaranteed fight. Sure. It's not, you know, they're not going to bay up and just kind of stand there. They're going to fight. And it's the big, you know, Russian razorback, you know, big old tusks. And, you know, they F up a lot. They F up a lot of dogs. So, you know, for me, it's like,
you know,
go ahead.
If you would, you know, ask me 10 years ago what my, you know, the quality in the hound that I'm looking for, I would say cold trailing ability and grit, you know, to really stay and even put teeth on it if they had to. But I tell you what, the vet situation around here the last few years it's gotten about impossible to find any emergency vets.
Really?
And to be honest with you, it scares me to death because, you know, I used to have a vet my family's been going to forever. That his dad owned it for a while, and then the kid took it over, and you know the kid's in his mid 40s, you know, and has been running it for 20 years now. And you know we could take dogs there whenever we needed. It didn't matter if it was a truck full, and they're good vets too. If something happened to a dog on their watch, like it, you know, I had the utmost confidence in them, like that dog wasn't going to make it no matter what. Right. But now they quit doing emergencies, and you know, I worked with another vet that quit doing emergencies, and here about an hour and a half from where I hunt, an emergency vet clinic opened up. Well, that was about 3 times or 4 times as expensive as the mom and pop places used to be. But I just heard the other day they quit taking new clients. So it really scares me to death to get a dog beat up and not having a place to take it. So I would say, you know, like the other day when those couple dogs quit, I don't like to see that. I'd rather them not do that. But on the other hand, it's like, if it's going to be that or get your butt kicked, right. You know, I guess I can take you hunting the next day now. Whereas, you know, it's just scary. There's such a vet shortage right now, and you know, people don't want to work, which I don't blame them. You know, some of those vets that were open through bear season, I mean, they'd be there almost 24 hours a day around the clock fixing up bear dogs.
Yeah.
And that's got to get old too. But
it's
kind of put us in a bad spot.
That is a bad spot to be in. You know, my day job is at a vet hospital. I'm a vet tech.
Sure.
And we're struggling with the same thing. You know, my hospital that I work at, they still look at it. They've got kind of an old school view of it all, that they became vets and they embrace the lifestyle, which, you know, means that they're called out in the middle of the night. It means that they are, you know, they knew what they were getting into when they became veterinarians and didn't expect anything different.
Yep.
Whereas the new generation of vets, they want their vacation, they want their nights, you know, uninterrupted. And I can understand that on some level. I can understand it. But at the same time, it's like, you know, the character of the profession has changed completely in the last 20 years. Yep. And it's scary because you've got vets that are like, well, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. I don't care if you have an animal that is about to die. That's not my problem. And that's a dangerous attitude to take because, you know, like in my opinion, it is your problem. Like you said, you wanted to become a veterinarian. Yeah. It's what you signed up for. You know, it's like you don't become a Marine and decide to be you're not a pacifist and decide to become a Marine. You know, you signed up for something. Yeah. Put your money where your mouth is and get it done. And, you know, it's maybe an unpopular opinion, but that's a bummer. You know, it's a bummer to be in the position you're in.
We've also got some vets that just flat out won't take hounds. Like they don't agree, you know, they don't agree with it. They think you're basically doing it to your dogs. So they're not, you know, we're not going to, and I'm sure they've got enough other clients that they don't really need the workload either. So they've just made the decision, we're not going to take hounds. And it's getting tougher all the time. I wish I would have married a vet. I screwed up. I told my wife, if you ever kick me out or whatever, I'm going to go start hanging out where all the vets hang out.
Right. Sure, you're going to start stalking the veterinary colleges and things like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. I see that, man. It's tough. It's, you know, and there's, I'm kind of on the fence about it, you know, because I've done quite a few of these podcasts and I've heard, you know, I've talked to guys that have been like, you know, if that dog is not there until the bitter end, it's not good enough for me. You know, and then I've talked to guys that are like, well, you know, you can't hunt a dead dog.
Yep.
And, you know, it's a tough thing because, you know, you want the grit, you want the ability to just get in there and just, you know, lay it all on the line. But at the same time, it's like, you know, those suicidal, you know, balls to the wall, throw it all, you know, go for the nose kind of dogs are just, you're not going to have them for that long. You know, it's that dog is not going to last.
Me only keeping 4 dogs of my own. I mean, I'm one bear away from not having anything to hunt too, you know,
right.
if they're going to mix it up too much. So,
yeah, man.
Yeah. My philosophy, my cousin's philosophy is still pretty much, they better not quit, but he's got 15 or 20 of them. So he always figures if he can't take one, he'll just take a different one. But my right. philosophy on that is, like I said, I don't want him to quit, but man, more and more is the tougher it is to find vets. It's like, well, I guess at least I don't have to worry about putting a dog down just because I can't find a place for them, or have them bleed out in my back seat because I can't find a vet that'll take them. So
right. Yeah. I mean, I get that. And, it's when your main game species are species that have the potential to really destroy your team, your pack, that's something you got to take into consideration. It's one of those things that I'm lucky I don't have to take that into consideration even really at all. It's like,
well, and honestly, that's kind of been one things that have drawn me to bobcats a little bit more too. I mean, yeah, my dogs might get scratched up a little bit by a bobcat, and I might have to put them on medication. But I haven't had a bobcat knock out a dog for 6 months. So
right, exactly. It's not. I'd have a little bit of a hard time feeling bad for you if you said, "Yeah, bobcat just totally destroyed my pack." I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if he feels too bad for you. Maybe it's time to start looking for new dogs. But it's true. It's like the foxes too. I had a dog that got bitten in the nose by a fox, and it blew his mind. Yeah. That dog has no business being out there. If that's all it takes, you're done. Like you're done. You're done here anyway. I have nothing more to say. But a dog that's not willing to
these two young dogs.
Yeah, go ahead.
These two young dogs, I had the first bobcat I introduced them to last winter, and it was my own damn fault. We had it. My two older dogs had it caught, and my dad had actually brought those two younger dogs in, and they kind of came up by me, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And they just kind of mopily walked up to that cat, and at different times, and that cat jumped on their head, and I mean shredded both of them.
Oh no!
And they were done. Like they're like, "Fuck this! I'm going back to the truck." But I called them back to me and got them pet up, and then they actually saw my two older dogs get it a couple times, and then that got them little. I was able to bring them back from that. But yeah, at first they were like, "Man, that thing hurts. I am not going anywhere near one of them again." But
screw that.
That was my own fault. I should have known that was a possibility and got them engaged in the cat before they just thought they were going to walk up to it and smell its butt.
It was your wife's cat, right? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But yeah, I felt bad. I felt bad for them. They had blood pouring out of their ears, and man, they wore that cat as a hat for probably 20 seconds. Like, oh man, that thing hurts.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, no, sometimes whether you want it to or not, that's sort of the nature of what we do, right? It's like whether you want it to or not, the shit is just going to completely hit the fan in ways that you could not possibly imagine. It's like, I cannot believe that just happened.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't do that again. I got to start leashing them up or something and getting them engaged first so they don't just go up there and get waylaid, because it took me a couple cats to bring them back from that. But hopefully it also gave them a little respect for him too.
Well, there's something to be said for that, right? It's like there's something to be said for, they walk away maybe a little bit wiser. It's but
I could see a situation where it could ruin a dog too.
Absolutely.
A really soft dog. You might have a hard time coming back from it, but
oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen dogs that would never have come back from that. I've had dogs that would never come back from that. Yeah. So no, it's a tough one, but yeah. Well, cool. When are you headed to BC with Buddy?
I think our hunt starts on December 3rd, I want to say. So I'm actually going to leave. I'm actually going to leave a day or two after Thanksgiving. I got a couple mountain passes I got to drive through on the way there. And I told my wife, like, I don't want a bad snowstorm to make me lose a day of hunting. If I get out there a day or two early, fine. But so, yeah, and I think Jason is actually going to try to go up there too, which
that would be awesome.
That'd be kind of fun. Yeah.
Love to see Jason get out and do that. He's between babies and magazines and everything. Jason, if you're listening to this, do it.
Yeah,
do it.
I hope he can. I think it'd be a lot of fun
Well, in that case,
Meet
I'm
the
sure
both
he's
of them
going
out
to
there.
do. I'm sure they'll both do a podcast with you about that whole trip. But in the event that they don't, let's connect again afterward. I want to hear about how it went.
For sure. For
Cool.
sure. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully my dogs don't make fools of me and it's not a wasted trip, but only one way to find out.
Only one way to find out. Only one way to find out. All right, Ross. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here. I know it's mid-morning for you there now. I appreciate you taking a morning to do this so I didn't have to get up in the middle of the night. It's always nice to do this when I'm not drunk with lack of sleep.
Yeah, no problem. This worked out pretty well. It gave me an excuse to run up to my cabin earlier, so
yeah.
I'm always down for that.
That's excellent. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and it was great to talk to you. We've known each other for a while, and it's good to finally sit down and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, man, you too. It's been fun.
Yep. All right, brother. Take care. Keep me posted on how everything's going, and we'll catch up again.
Will do.
All right. See ya.
Cool. See ya, Bear. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye. Man, I love that sound.